TV Guide describes this movie as a thoroughly engaging action film that transforms its rather mundane storyline into something memorable, funny, and moving. Variety called it one of the most entertaining, best executed, original road pictures ever. And Matt Brunson of Creative Loafing raves that it's an extremely satisfying action comedy, one that still hasn't fully received its due. On this, the 40th episode of Ruined Childhoods, we decide the fate of Midnight Run.
Sequel. Reboot. Which one will it be?
It's the Ruined Childhoods podcast.
Greetings, Starfighters.
Hi, Starfighters.
It's Ruined Childhoods. What?
I just want to say hi to the Starfighters out
Hi,
there.
Starfighters. No, well, greetings. I mean, it's the proper address of a Starfighter.
Hey, Starfighters.
Hey, Starfighters. How's it going? How you doing?
Well, you have to imagine that in the last Starfighter, they were just like walking around at one point, like passing each other in the corridors, being like, "Oh, hey, Starfighter,
What's up?
you go get him."
Yo, you my Starfighter.
Yeah. But yes. Hi, hello, Dan. How's it going?
It's going great, John. It's going great. How are you doing?
I've had a stressful weekend. We're recording this Sunday night. I have been dealing with an issue where my neighbors just below my unit where I live, their ceiling was flooding due to a plumbing situation that might have been caused by my kitchen sink, or could be our neighbors above us, who's to say, but yeah, just been dealing with that all weekend, and I am happy to be recording this episode of Ruined Childhoods with you, my friend.
To be my brother.
My brother. Well, we're friends too.
Yes,
it's fair to say.
Yes, of course.
But I will say I've been very much looking forward to doing this episode with you because we're talking about Midnight Run.
Yeah. Very exciting. One of my favorites. But first. So I guess I'll report back, because if you're a faithful listener of Ruined Childhoods, or even someone who just listens to the ones where we talk about movies that you've heard of, because not everyone wants to hear an hour and a half about Transylvania 65000. But on the other hand,
I can't relate to those people.
No,
at all.
I know that those people exist, but I really want to live in a world where everyone is down for that. Anyway, if you've been following, you know that I'm a high school teacher, and I direct a play, a non-musical play, at that high school every year. Well, this is the second year, so but I'm on board for next year.
You're two for two.
I'm 2 for 2 in terms of I would say in terms of success, in terms of just crowd reception, the way that the cast feels about it. My first play there I did was an old early 1980s play by Neil Simon called Fools. Mm-hmm. And it was a 10-person cast, and simple, short, funny, and very well received, and I thought it was very well acted. And then this year, as you know, if you're a faithful listener, I have taken Aaron Sorkin's debut play, A Few Good Men, and
was that his debut play?
That was his first play. Yeah, 30 years ago, almost exactly 30 years ago. So November 15th. Right. It opened November 15th, 1989. November 15th, 2019 was when A Few Good Men closed. And we did, kind of a reboot, if you will, or a remake with several of the roles originally played by men, now being played by women in
Moles. Women, right?
Yes, women, as roles like Colonel Jessup, who was Jack Nicholson in the movie, Lieutenant Kendrick, who was Kiefer Sutherland in the movie.
Quick time out. Every time I hear Kiefer Sutherland's name, which is quite often, he's been active for a long time. I enjoy his work.
Yeah.
But I always think of Jiminy Glick saying, Kiefer, Kiefer, when he's trying to get his attention outside of some opening or something. Anyway.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
We talk about Jiminy Glick a lot on this podcast.
I was about to comment. I'm pretty sure, yeah, it's been several Jiminy Glick references like consecutively.
Well, anyway, go on. You were saying.
I don't think it's a problem. I mean,
no, it's great.
No. So, Lance Corporal Dawson, who in the movie is played by Wolfgang Bodison, it's one of the Marines who is on trial, also played by a woman. And I mean, I'm thinking of them. They did such a great job. These are kids ranging from 15 to 17 or 18, and I think they're all under 18, 15 to 17. But they really on stage really went as far as they could to become the adults they were playing. And some of them were playing characters that were probably, 19 or 20. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me ask you this. Well, first of all, congratulations on wrapping up your second production.
Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and say 40 episodes of this podcast that we've done. That includes this episode, which is episode 40. Which movie that we've done could you see yourself putting on at that high school for the drama next year?
So are we talking about something that would have been a play previously, or
not necessarily?
If I'm going to try to be that dude in Jersey who adapted Alien.
Yeah, sure. It could be any of them.
Okay, so keeping in mind that I am not doing a musical, but a straight play. Oh, and I should look at the ones that we've done, not the ones that we're probably going to do sometime. I'm looking at our list, and I'm like, some of them would make really good musicals. Some of them they did the Addams Family musical a few years ago.
Okay, that's cool.
So what would
did they do? Too Legit, Addams Family. The Addams Family rap. I
didn't see it, but they do what they want to do, go where they want to go do. I don't know. I knew it. Listen to the episode. I had a much better job. Okay, so I'm looking at some possibilities that would be, I think, really fun stage plays to do. And that would be Soap Dish, although what a musical that would make.
Yeah.
But Soap Dish, I could see What About Bob?
Ooh, that would be good.
Being a really fun play. I could see... You know what might be fun? I wonder how Weekend at Bernie's would be.
Ooh, interesting. Oh my God. That'd be so good.
And then last but not least, well, no. I guess Rain Man would be kind of tough.
No, I like Weekend at Bernie's. I mean, you typically do dramas. So I don't know if Weekend at Bernie's...
no, not really. Because last year...
That's right.
Last year
it's just non-musical, that's all.
Yeah. I mean, I'll probably get to do a musical in a few years. I got the hint that that's coming, but
cool.
Yeah, in which case I would go with. Well, I guess I can't say Cabaret because that was a musical before a movie. But in which case I would either say Three Amigos, or again Soap Dish.
Soap Dish would be a really good one,
or possibly. And we haven't done it yet, but. A little preview for when we finally do My Blue Heaven.
Right. Well, not to spoil anything for whenever we do that episode, but you've been talking to me about adapting that into a musical for years.
For years, I have. This is like one of those projects that eventually, when I have the time to do it, if if nobody has done it yet, I will adapt my Blue Heaven into a musical. But that is another discussion for another time.
Yeah. Before we get into what we're talking about today, for real, before we started recording, we both acknowledged that we had recently watched Dolemite Is My Name on Netflix.
Yeah.
Dan, what'd you think?
I really enjoyed it. I had watched. Had you seen Dolemite, the actual Rudy Ray Moore?
I hadn't, and I was debating watching it before watching this, and I feel like I didn't need to. And they do show clips at the end, so.
And that
was smart.
It was definitely so. Like, I decided to put it on. I forget when, but like several weeks, maybe a couple months ago, when I knew that Dolemite Is My Name was coming to Netflix, and I was like, oh well, Dolemite is streaming. Let me watch Dolemite. And I'm so glad that I didn't end up watching the whole thing, but I watched enough to the point where I was like, I have seen enough to be able to kind of judge Eddie Murphy's performance and judge the movie.
You could tell that he had his heart fully in it, and that was really refreshing to see. For anybody who's unfamiliar, Dolemite Is My Name is the story of the guy who was just kind of a struggling musician, comedian, who never was able to really quite make it until he adapted this, he took on this persona that was inspired by a local hobo, as they say in the movie. And that kind of sparks this whole like foul-mouthed like pimp persona that he eventually self-produced a movie of. And it's very much like The Disaster Artist in the way that is for The Room, where it's like a movie that when it was being made, you feel like they were kind of like, I think that this is supposed to be serious, but it's like, it kind of bordered on like spectacle. Because, I mean, he wanted to do karate and everything, and everyone was just like, how do we make this look like he's actually knowing what he's doing? And I don't know. So I think that in a lot of ways it's similar. It's not the same.
Right. Yeah, no, because at a certain point he did decide to kind of make it more comedic.
Right. Similarly to the way that Tommy Wiseau, after the movie came out and people saw it as this funny, twisted with it. Comedy, he changed his tune to say, it's supposed to be that way.
Yeah, he went with it, but Rudy, at least according to the film, it is implied that Eddie Murphy or that Rudy Ray Moore, at least midway through filming, decided like, maybe we should just try to make this funny.
Right. I will say though, it's, at least this is just for me, it's difficult to watch him playing a real person because it's really hard for me to get out of my mind that it's Eddie Murphy.
Yes, I agree with you, and I will say even to compare it to his performance in Dreamgirls, which I would say would be his one other performance where he was really trying to not be an Eddie Murphy character.
Yeah.
I felt that in Dreamgirls it was much I felt the character in Dreamgirls and his performance was much further from kind of his persona, whereas this was kind of like a good mix of this person. They found the right person who was kind of like, oh yeah, Eddie Murphy could kind of play this guy and do his thing. And yeah, I mean, like I enjoyed the movie and I enjoyed his performance, but I enjoyed it because it was Eddie Murphy being funny.
Right. Yeah.
Which I haven't seen in a while.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't seen in a new movie in a while. I've seen it recently.
We just watched Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah.
Yeah. So moving on to what we're talking about on this episode, as I was thinking about it, I was like, this is kind of a perfect movie to do because it blends a couple of things that are very current right now, where we have Robert De Niro in The Irishman, going back to a young Robert De Niro as they do digitally. And then we also have the launch of Disney Plus and The Mandalorian, the story of a bounty hunter. So
yes,
you put those two together, you got Midnight Run. And just before we really get into it, I mean, I think that I first saw this movie just a few years ago. I mean, it's possible that I caught it when I was a kid and never really realized what it was, but for some reason, whenever I would hear Midnight Run, I would just assume it was something else, like a more serious movie. And then once I actually like saw it, knowing full what it was, I was like, oh, this is fantastic. It is far from being a super serious movie. It's the same director from Beverly Hills Cop, Martin Brest. And it definitely has that like same action comedy feel, but it doesn't feel like you're watching, I don't know, the same movie. Like it has its own vibe to it.
Yeah.
That's really enjoyable.
It's, you know what I always find charming about it, and I think I saw it probably for the first time in college, and with my one of my friends, Dave Kelly, who had like the best VHS collection. David James Kelly, screenwriter of 2018's Robin Hood, starring Taron Egerton. So
there you go.
Yes, back in the day when we used to just binge watch VHS movies. And he introduced me to Midnight Run, and I loved it so much, I went out and got my own copy and on VHS, and then eventually made sure I had a DVD copy, just because it's so much, like, it's fun, and if you like action and comedy, it blends it really well. It doesn't get too serious, but it also it isn't just all played for laughs. It's not too light. It's just a very natural, like, it's an action movie, but with such great comedy that comes from the performances and the chemistry between Robert De Niro and Charles Grodin.
Right. So just a brief synopsis. I'm trying to dial in my synopses a little bit better because in the last episode I was like, man, I just kind of went a little wild, but I'm going to try to dial it in a little bit.
You do the synopses because if I did, I'd go off on tangents like crazy.
That's true. So Robert De Niro plays Jack Walsh, who's a bounty hunter who's hired to find John Mardukas, the Duke, who's an accountant who embezzled $15 million from an organized crime unit led by Jimmy Serrano, played by Dennis Farina. Yes. And man, oh man, his thick Chicago accent.
Sydney, shut the fuck up beautiful. And have a cream soda.
And John Mardukas is played by Charles Grodin, who's his kind of his wry attitude, his kind of like, you don't know where he stands on things. You know, he's a really hard read, and that really works well for this character. So Jack Walsh is hired to find him. Mardukas embezzled $15 million and then gave it all to charity. Well, gave most of it to charity, we'll say. And Eddie, Joe Pantoliano, who co-starred with Susan Sarandon in Cats and Dogs, who was also in Lorenzo's Oil, by the way.
Oh, yeah. No kidding.
So Joey Pants is Jack's boss. And
Jack's Robert De Niro, who was in Cape Fear with Nick Nolte, who was in Lorenzo's Oil. That's
the obvious one.
Well, yeah, I know.
So
sorry, what did you want me to say? Marvin's Room with Margot Martindale?
That would have been preferable.
Well, I'm sorry. You know what? You didn't take Cape Fear, and I love Cape Fear, so.
So Eddie bailed out John Mardukas, bailed him out of jail for $450,000, not realizing who he was, and then the Duke kind of just disappeared, and Eddie was like, I need you to find this guy. And Jack convinces him to give him $100,000 as the reward for the bounty. Meanwhile, FBI agent Alonzo Mosley is trying to find Mardukas so he can bring him to federal court. Meanwhile, Jimmy Serrano's people are offering Jack, I think, $1 million. Is it over $1 million or $1 million?
I think it's $1 million.
Yeah, $1 million to find the Duke. As we find out, one of the guys who works for Eddie is in with the Serrano people and feeds them information. Meanwhile, John Ashton plays Marvin Dorfler, who's another bounty hunter, who's kind of like the budget version of Jack.
Yeah,
and he's
much
just
rougher around the edges.
He's sloppier, and John Ashton of Beverly Hills Cop. It's great to see him in kind of a slobby role compared to his role in the first two Beverly Hills Cop movies, where he's all buttoned up. So yeah, here he's just this like complete mess. He's a bounty hunter, and he's always kind of getting in Jack's way. And Eddie offers him, I think, $12,000. Is it 12 or 25?
25.
A lot less to find the Duke. Yeah. And so everybody's trying to find Jack and the Duke. Jack finds the Duke like really easily using his excellent detective skills. He finds him in New York. And from that point, it's just like trying to get him back to Los Angeles while shaking off all of these other tales that he's got. And it's really enjoyable. It's a wonderful buddy road film.
And you know what's interesting, though, in that regard, is that, excuse me, so it's reminiscent of a lot of other movies that came out around the same time. For instance, in November of 1987, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Uh-huh. Two people traveling together who don't particularly get along, but are forced together by circumstance. You also have in 1988, after Midnight Run comes out, you have two other movies we've discussed on this podcast, Twins and Rain Man, about two very unlike people who are put together, by genetics and circumstance.
It's also easy to make a connection with Rain Man also because there's a fear of flight that kind of sparks the whole road trip element to this.
Yeah.
And going back to Beverly Hills Cop, there's also the same element of two characters who are playing off of each other like an old married couple.
Yes.
So George Gallo, who wrote Midnight Run, kind of modeled the demeanor of the two lead characters on his parents.
Which, okay, so and Martin Brest just knew what to do with that.
Yeah, he's like, got it.
Yeah,
done.
Taggart, Rosewood, done.
Yeah. So I watched a lot of late night appearances from Charles Grodin from around this time, even going back to even the early 80s. And I never knew this about Charles Grodin, but he had this late night persona. Are you familiar with this?
He had his own talk show. He had his own late night show.
But I'm talking about when he was like a guest on like Carson or Letterman, where he played kind of this version of himself who feels like the interviewer doesn't respect him.
Okay.
You have to go back and watch some of his late night performances. He does one where he brings his lawyer with him.
Okay.
And has his lawyer sitting next to him. It's so good. I highly recommend checking it out. But I never really appreciated Charles Grodin until the past 5 years. I mean, he's been great in all the things he's been in because he is so good at playing that pent up aggression, that anger that's just buried deep inside and bursting out, in Clifford. He kind of nails that. He's the Beethoven movies. It's just kind of like his thing.
Taking care of business.
Yeah. Not so much Dave.
Not so much Dave.
But
no, yeah.
So I Married an Ex-Murderer.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
He's the guy who gets his car commandeered.
That's right. Yeah, he's fantastic in that.
Yeah, Charles Grodin, and he kind of like semi-retired from acting for quite a while. I mean, he came back. He was in a few episodes of Louis, and he was in Louis C.K.'s movie that he made, and I don't know. I mean, I'd love to see him fully back.
Yeah, no, it'd be nice to see Charles Grodin back on screen.
Yeah,
acting once again. Why couldn't they get him in The Irishman?
I would have loved it.
Yeah,
I'd love to see the two of them together.
Yeah. I mean, and geez, while they were at it, why couldn't they have thrown like Susan Sarandon or Nick Nolte in there just to like make things a little easier for us? I mean, De Niro did already work with Susan Sarandon in The Big Wedding, so.
Oh boy.
You thought I only had Cape Fear.
Cape Fear was just the obvious one, man. Although, speaking of The Mandalorian, we have Nick Nolte in that one.
Is Nick Nolte in The Mandalorian?
Have you watched it yet?
No, I don't have Disney Plus yet.
Okay. Well, he plays a... I mean, it doesn't look as much like... It looks like an alien version of him, but he helps out our main character, at least in the first 2 episodes. That's what's aired so far.
Okay. I know Carl Weathers is in it.
Carl Weathers is in it. That's true.
That's exciting.
Yeah. Nick Nolte does an excellent job. As does he in Lorenzo's Oil.
Yes. But back to back to Midnight Run. I will say this much, and I would say if you really don't follow any of the talk about like the world of bounty hunting, it could probably be a little difficult like to follow.
How do you figure?
Because if you don't understand what a bail bondsman does, if you don't understand things, I don't think you'd understand the stakes and understand like why it's so important that he gets Mardukas back to LA. And, like that the stakes are really high. Why all these people are looking for him. So I guess what I'm saying is one of the things that I really appreciate about this movie is it's for adults. It is a movie starring adults, granted predominantly adult men. There are no Margot Martindale does not pop up anywhere in it.
Right. There was a discussion early on to have Charles Grodin's character be a woman. They were talking about Cher.
I heard Cher, yeah.
And then have there be some sort of like, romantic undertones. But I'm glad they didn't do that.
Because they did that
not
with
to
Gerard
say
Butler
that,
and Jennifer Aniston, and it did not do
right.
well.
Sure. Yeah. So...
The Bounty Hunter.
Yes, The Bounty Hunter.
I never saw it.
And it's interesting. I don't know if I saw it. I might have seen it. It's interesting how often bounty hunting comes up in pop culture.
Yeah.
I don't know how common it is, in the real world. You see things like Dog the Bounty Hunter, but that's kind of everybody's version of real life bounty hunting.
Yeah. And you see, like, I feel like you see that there's, like, bail bonds offices, especially if, you spend a lot of time in cities or, like, smaller cities, like Newark. I remember in Newark, New Jersey, seeing a lot of bail bondsmen.
The first time I ever became really aware of bail bonds was from the movie Major League, because there was an ad for bail bonds at the stadium.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that reminds me of Bad News Bears, where they're sponsored. The Bears are
they're sponsored.
Yeah, Chico's bail bonds.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems like an easy thing to joke about. And Midnight Run doesn't really take that angle at all. It's
No.
like, this is a serious business, and it's a business that is important. It's good that it exists so that that we can have movies like Midnight Run.
Yeah, I guess. Thank goodness that this is not one of those businesses. I wonder how technology has changed the bounty hunting business. I mean, just tracking and.
If we were a better podcast, we would be interviewing a bounty hunter on this episode.
Yeah, I mean,
if you are a bounty hunter and want to give us any information about your profession, write to us at ruinchildhoodspod@gmail.com, and we'll try to do a phone interview or something.
Maybe if you know bounty hunters, because clearly this is going to come up again. This is going to come up again in our next episode, John.
Oh my God, you're right. Okay, that's my homework for the next week.
Yeah,
we're finding a bounty hunter to talk to.
I'll ask my kids what their parents do.
Right. Who is your daddy and what does he do?
Yeah, well, hey, you know what? It's 2019. Mommy could be a bounty hunter too.
This is true.
Yeah. But yeah, there's such great, like, I love that the humor in the movie comes out of the situations, and it's everything from when Walsh gets the Duke in New York and the dog is barking at him and he's standing inside the shower.
Right, in the shower.
And he's holding the Alonzo Mosley FBI thing, that's just such a great running gag. That and all, like, the cigarettes, how they keep taking Marvin's cigarettes. It's fantastic. There's so many great running gags in it, but it's not, the movie's not built around the gags. The gags, like the jokes, the humor comes out of the circumstances. They come out of the relationships. The whole, there's that one great line that I love it. I don't know if it was scripted, because I know that there was a lot that was improvised in this movie. But like when they get picked up, they're hitchhiking. They get picked up in that pickup truck, and Grodin goes, yeah hey, and De Niro's like, what is that? And Grodin's like, it's hello. I know how to say hello in many languages, not yours. It's just such a great. And when he's on the train and he does the back and forth and he pretends to be De Niro,
right,
shut up.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, Jack, when are we going to shut the fuck up?
The train sequence is definitely, because they're in the car of a freight train, and that's when you really feel them connecting, even though they're at their most, like, at each other's throats. The tension is broken when the Duke asks him if he'd ever have sex with an animal, and then they just start cracking each other up, and it's just like, these guys are buds. And that's funny, because it's also, yeah, that's right, that's improvised, but it's also coming off of when they do the scam at that bar about the counterfeit 20s, where
also improvised.
That's right, I did read that was also improvised.
They improvised a lot of it. Yeah.
And it's like they're getting along, and then it's almost like they have a moment where they're just like, wait, why are we getting along so well? I have to try to get away from this guy. And then they come back to each other, and I don't know. They're a truly magnificent pair, Charles Grodin and Robert De Niro.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. It does, I guess, make me regretful that there was no sequel to it. Which I guess,
there was no sequel, but
I guess there
was the made-for-TV movies. Have you seen these?
Which I guess were sequels. I haven't seen them. I know they exist, with Christopher McDonald as Walsh.
Yeah. So there's another Midnight Run, Midnight Runaround, and Midnight Run for Your Life. So they're kind of doing a Die Hard kind of thing, like Die Hard with a Vengeance, Live Free or Die Hard.
A good midnight to run.
Yeah, exactly. A good midnight for a run. So, I mean, have you seen any of these?
No.
Do you have any interest?
No.
It's amazing that they made 3 of them. I barely even knew that they existed.
I really don't want to see Midnight Run. All right. So
starring Shooter McGavin? I
do not want to see Midnight Run starring all due respect to Christopher McDonald, who I enjoy so much in movies like Happy Gilmore and Quiz Show. But so Midnight Run, first of all, if it's going to be connected to the original movie, I would want it to be De Niro and Grodin.
Right.
I don't think I would want one without the other. I don't think I would want to see like another Jack Walsh adventure, which is what I think these are. Is just like.
But what's weird about that is that at the end of Midnight Run, this is spoilers in case you haven't seen it, but at the end of Midnight Run, he essentially gets the money that he would need to start his coffee shop that he wants to open up, because he was looking to get out of the bounty hunting business.
Yeah, that was the whole reason he took this job, because it would be enough money to get him out of the business. And then he ends up with more money than he would have gotten had he just done the job.
It's a lovely ending.
It really...
But it doesn't
really
lend itself to a sequel where he's still a bounty hunter.
No. I don't know, John. So what do you think? Like, what would you do with this? Where would you go?
Gee, Dan, thanks for asking. I would have a sequel, and it would be 30 years later. Or when did this one come out?
It would be it would have been 31 this past summer. It came out in 1988.
30 some odd years later. My idea is that let's see. I have 30 years later. The Duke is a person of interest in an embezzlement case and is then on the run. Like, so he's not the person doing the embezzling, but he's being sought after in connection with an embezzlement. So he finds Jack at the coffee shop that he runs and asks him for help getting across the country so he can clear his name without getting, caught by either the cops or the people who are trying to frame him or whatever's going on. And, and maybe Jack has remarried and his new wife comes along on the journey. I don't know, just to like mix things up a little bit.
Do we run into his ex-wife or Denise along the way?
No, I mean, well, hey, maybe Denise comes with them, his daughter. No need for the ex-wife. She kind of served
maybe
her
Denise
purpose.
is in law enforcement and Denise ends up on their tail.
Well, Denise remarried one of the crooked cops in Chicago.
Well, that's not Denise. That's
not
Denise's
Denise.
mom.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Right. I'm sorry. Not Denise.
Jack's ex-wife.
Jack's
Did
ex-wife.
we get her name?
I forget her name, but
Karen?
remarried. She remarried a crooked cop in Chicago who used to work with Jack, and maybe he has something to do with this, and maybe he's just like trying to get, under Jack's skin or something, and he knows that the Duke will find his way to Jack. I don't know. I was thinking about a remake, and not that this makes so much of a difference, but I didn't see it as really necessary. We have a lot of other bounty hunter movies around, so it didn't seem like we necessarily needed an updated version. I feel like the movie just really holds up. It just didn't seem necessary, and I was thinking prequel, but it's like we're given a lot of information about, especially Jack's past, and going deeper into that doesn't feel necessary to me. Like if there was a prequel about his time, we
want to know why
Chicago.
he was so unpopular with the Chicago Police Department.
Right.
Want to answer that question?
Well, I think that the fact that he didn't want to get bought off by the Serrano crime syndicate, while everyone else was seemingly okay with it. I don't know if we need to see that.
No, I agree with that. I agree that it really holds up very well. And I wonder, okay, so what do you gain from doing a remake? Do you set it today and kind of update all of the bounty hunter, techniques with the technology? Do you, do you just set it in the 1980s? Who do you cast? Like, what do you get out of doing it again? And also, what do you do? Like, the script is so funny, and are you gonna rewrite Like you're going to rewrite that script and make it better? I don't think so. So, I mean, there's definitely people that I would love to see, like, if they kept the script. There's definitely, like, actors that I would love to see in these roles. Like, it made me think of a movie that I wasn't so crazy about, The Heat, starring Melissa McCarthy and Sandra Bullock. But I thought to myself, I'm like, man, the two of them as Walsh and Mardukas, respectively, would be hilarious. Like Melissa McCarthy in that role as in De Niro's role and Sandra Bullock in Grodin's role. Like that would have been a lot better than whatever they gave us with The Heat. I feel like Miles Teller would be a fun Mardukas. Miles Teller.
Okay.
I think Miles Teller would be a fun Mardukas. I think I was thinking about it. I was like, I don't know, maybe J-Lo would be a good like Walsh, although I feel like she might have done something like that already. Like that might have been one of her J-Lo
I don't know.
movies. Like a Brad Pitt as Walsh, Midnight Run.
Mm-hmm.
That could be, I mean, but all the same, it's like, what's the purpose? Like, what's the point? Mark Wahlberg was another one who I was like, but it's almost like if they were to make it now instead of then.
Yeah, I mean, you think about people who have a similar chemistry. So like Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell, they've worked together on a few things, and you know that they have that, they can do that type of dynamic. You know, you have people like Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum. You know that they can have that like funny but at each other's throats chemistry. There's too many to name right now, but like there's totally people who can do it, and that's not really the question. It's like write something else for them that fits that, situation.
Right. Yeah, because if it's Midnight Run, it's like I want to see Midnight Run. Yeah, and it's not like Midnight Run was some big, Midnight Run is more of I feel like it's gained it was well received by critics. I don't think it was.
It has a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes, I think.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean
it's got a really high Rotten Tomatoes rating.
Yeah. I wanted to check the box office for it.
Oh, I saw on, was it Wikipedia? Box office. It was really It grossed $5.5 million in the opening weekend, went on to make $38.4 million in North America, $43.2 million in the rest of the world, for a total of $81.6 million.
But it opened at number 5. In the summer of July 1988.
Box Office Mojo is now under a paywall, so it's hard to see all that information.
So I'm looking at it. Yeah, I'm looking at it here. So it ranked number 5 in its opening weekend behind The Deadpool, which was the last Dirty Harry movie, Die Hard, and Coming to America, and Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Which, it was funny, Die Hard actually went from number 16 to number 3 within a week.
Huh.
Well, they added a ton of theaters. I think it opened limited. But yeah, so even its opening weekend, and it looks like it opened against Big Top Pee-wee, Caddyshack 2, Mr. North, Pascali's Island. So these are the movies it opened up against, and it did the best of all of them.
Yeah. And what's interesting is just talking about Robert De Niro a little bit. He, clearly has done so many dramas in his early career, and he wanted to do something lighter, like more of a comedy, and he really was interested in the starring role in Big. And even though Penny Marshall really liked him for the role, the studio didn't. And so then that's when Midnight Run came across him. And can you imagine Big with Robert De Niro?
I mean,
It would feel very different.
there's something about there's something that about that just really intrigues me. Yeah. Yeah, no, I remembered hearing that. I mean, obviously things worked out the way that they should have. Just like I can't imagine Tom Hanks as Jack Walsh in Midnight Run. Not that there would have been a quid pro quo
Right.
between Big
Yeah,
and Midnight Run.
They would certainly be very different movies, that's for sure. Yeah, I don't know. So I don't know. You said what you shouldn't do. I'd like to know more about your thoughts of like what should happen.
What should happen with Midnight Run?
Yeah.
A theatrical re-release.
Re-release.
Yeah, I mean, just like okay, like I want to go see it in a movie theater. So
I wonder if they ever do show that one, in the revival theaters.
I have
Is
never.
Is it enough of a cult film? It's certainly not a classic, but is it enough of a cult that people would be interested in seeing it?
I don't know if the people
Aside from you and the guy who wrote Robin Hood.
Oh, Dave. Yeah. No. Yeah. True. I don't think it would be. Yeah. I don't know what money there is in the theatrical re-release. I want to say that they put it out on Blu-ray, but it's like a special limited edition thing. Yeah. I mean, just leave it alone.
Leave it alone.
or like, how about some prequel? Maybe like some prequel story. Some pulp crime novels about like Jack Walsh's cop days. Like, how about some graphic novels or something that like.
So you want Jack Walsh Year One?
So some fan fiction, yeah, some Jack Walsh Year One, like Walsh v Serrano. Or what about like the whole like Walsh? Because wasn't the whole thing like Walsh was undercover in Serrano's network?
He was undercover, and then Serrano's people, I guess, found out and planted heroin in his car or something.
Yeah.
Is something like that.
But that's the thing is like he was I think it was like for almost a year that he was deep undercover in the Jimmy Serrano, crime network, crime family. Yeah. So I mean, I could see like maybe not like a prequel movie about that, but I don't know, some like nice pulp crime novels or something.
That's kind of cool. I don't know.
I don't know, like the Jack Walsh mysteries.
There was a moment in Midnight Run where Robert De Niro does this. He just has a great moment. It's when they're in the airplane going to Vegas so that they can bust Serrano. So he's with Alonzo Mosley and the FBI, and he's getting a wire put on him. And he just kind of like has a smile on his face and he's just like, reminds me of being a cop. And it's just like a really nice moment where he's just like, this is how I feel the most comfortable right now.
That's such a great scene. I love how he's laying out the whole plan and Alonzo is just like I underestimated this guy.
Yeah, he's like, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And Yaphet, we haven't talked about Yaphet Kotto and his performance in this.
Yaphet Kotto, who allegedly had a miserable time making this movie. He was
sick the whole time.
The entire time, and just really did not trust Martin Brest's vision. And I don't know, he I think said like, and I was surprised when I saw it, and it actually turned out great. But yeah, as Alonzo Mosley, he's awesome. He's got these like his signature sunglasses that he puts on at just the right moment. He's great.
Yeah. It's a great movie. Joe Pantoliano is magnificent.
Gotta love Joey Pants. He's just like the kind of slimy bail bondsman. I mean, he's not a bad guy.
No, he's just he does what he does what he has to do. He's a bail bondsman, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I could totally understand his perspective, like when he gets Marvin on board to take over the bounty, because it's just like he has a lot of money on the line, and he hasn't heard from Jack, and he doesn't want to miss out on his investment, so
Yeah,
sends Marvin after him.
I get it.
I get it. He's just doing business.
No one's judging. No one's judging Eddie Moscone.
So let's talk about what we're going to be doing next on the next episode.
Okay, so on the next episode, and speaking for myself, I had not been thinking about this when we said. Oh, but you know what? Sorry. Before we move on, we should note the other directing credits of Martin Brest, because Martin Brest, so he did Beverly Hills Cop. He had done Going in Style with like Art Carney in 1979, and then Beverly Hills Cop, and then he takes these 4-year breaks because he did Beverly Hills Cop, and then Midnight Run in 1988, and then 92, Scent of a Woman.
That's right.
Big hit movie, lots of Oscar nominations, and then he waits another 6 years before releasing Meet Joe Black.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and Meet Joe Black is not the huge success that everyone expects it to be, being a 3-hour romantic melodrama that's best known...
Supernatural-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's best known for its shot of the Brad Pitt character bouncing off cars.
Numerous cars.
Yes. And then...
We did that movie as in our June Squibb recast.
Yes, that's right. It is. So, and then after Meet Joe Black, he takes 5 years off and then attempts to redeem his career with Geely.
That's right. And then he was never seen or heard from again.
Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck. Yes.
That Geely. You heard us right.
And yeah. So anyway, and you know what, John? Our director of next week's film is another, interesting director with a checkered record.
Oh my God.
Because, hey, he directed The Long Kiss Goodnight, but he also directed Cutthroat Island.
That's right.
And so it's Rennie Harlin, who will be talking about perhaps one of his best regarded films, another movie that has certainly gained a cult following since its release, The Long Kiss Goodnight.
One of my favorite Christmas movies.
Yeah, it's the season.
I mean, it's a Shane Black vehicle, so
yeah, it's Shane Black.
Christmas.
Shane Black. I'm pretty sure it's Rennie Harlin. I don't know why I'm
written by Shane Black.
Yes,
so yeah, it's starring Gina Davis and Samuel L. Jackson. Yeah, this is one, and I'll save this for sure for the next episode, where I remember the circumstances under which I saw this movie.
Interesting. I don't know that I do. So
well, you have a week to figure it out.
Okay, sounds good, John. Well, on that note, I bid you a good journey.
Good journey to you.